It is the top of the hour, and so we will begin. Welcome to all of you who have joined us. So many from around the world. This is fantastic. The topic today is shaping organizational culture, and we're going to spend an hour talking about that and learning the story of Bob Chapman and the story of Barry-Wehmiller. I want to begin, Argentina. Hello, Martin. Um, I want to begin just with a little introduction to Ingenuity, and while we're pulling that up, just a couple of housekeeping things. We want this to be interactive. Many of you join webinars, and we get that. A lot of times, the questions or comments are put at the end. We don't want to do it that way. We like to make this interactive, and it's a great chance to ask questions and make comments, share thoughts, and you could just do that right inside the webinar chat window. And so that's the way we'll do that. Just a little bit about Ingenuity. I'm the Senior Director of Learning for Ingenuity, and just a little bit about our company. We provide four basic services. One is consulting around learning, which is needs analysis and gap analysis, curriculum mapping, program marketing, and many other consulting services. We do design and development work for e-learning, for mobile learning. We do a lot of gamification work and dashboards and video production, animation production. Pretty much anything around learning is a part of what we do. Then we do a great deal of translation and localization work. We have translated more than 1 billion words. We have translated more than 10,000 e-learning modules. Many of our companies, many of our customers are global, and so we work in 200 languages. And so it's a complex thing, but an awful lot of fun. And then finally, we provide staff augmentation, which is temporary staff people all around learning, training, and development. And we've placed something like 1,500 people in companies around the world, helping them think through some of their learning challenges. So I want to start with an introduction to Bob. So Bob, if you'd come off mute and turn the camera on, then we can see you. Hello, my friend.
Good afternoon. I'm ready.
Excellent. Well, we are ready for this conversation. So, as I mentioned, my name is Jerry Zandstra. I'm Senior Director of Learning at Ingenuity. I've known Bob, I suppose, for more than 10 years. And it's been one of the great joys of my life to have this man have influence in my life and the life of my family. So it's been a great experience. Bob, give us just a little bit of background. How did you end up at Barry-Wehmiller, and what has been your role, and what was it like when you started, and so on?
Well, let me set the stage. My educational background was an undergraduate degree in accounting from Indiana and an MBA from Michigan, and then I went to Waterhouse. So very, background-wise, a very traditional accounting background, and my goal was to be a partner in a public accounting firm. I have no idea why, but that was my goal.
I just wonder what happened in your childhood that made you think, accounting. Yes.
I think the greatest compliment somebody's ever given me is, "I can't believe you're an accountant." So I would say to you, and then a couple of years into public accounting, my dad all of a sudden saw his son doing extremely well in a profession he started in. And he was at the time running Barry-Wehmiller, which was a $20 million company that was challenged. And he said to me in February of 1969, "Would you consider joining Barry-Wehmiller? I need somebody I can trust." So until that point, never talked to him, never considered working for the company. It had always been challenged. I was going to be a public accountant. So I began. I moved from kind of the Price Waterhouse into a manufacturing company that was 100 years old, and had the opportunity to work with my dad for 6 years. It was the best 6 years of our relationship in our life, because he was tired the stress of the business, and I was ready for the challenge. So it was a perfect transition. And when he died suddenly of a heart attack in 75, I had been there for 6 years, worked in every part of the business from manufacturing, engineering to customer service. So, again, traditional education, some unique experience working with my dad. And then when he died in 1975, it was an $18 million company that was struggling financially. And the first person I met was the bankers who pulled our loans. So,
yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
So that's how we began.
Yeah. And where are you now, Bob? Let's take a look at. I just have some stats up here on Barry-Wehmiller, and knowing where you were back in the mid '70s, a challenged company. You have gone from that to this. So talk us through some of this.
Yeah, I think for your audience, the biggest thing I would say is when my father passed away, my passion was to take this company he had struggled to keep alive when he bought into it in the 50s to carry forward, because that's all I knew. How can I take this company that he tried to keep? And we had some significant initial success. And then we ran into some significant challenges because we outgrew our competency, ran into in 83, some serious financial challenges, and our banks pulled on us again.
Oof.
And we got through it, barely 7 months without financing. We got through it. But at the end of it, I looked at my team because we had finally gotten refinanced by an asset-based lender, which is kind of the lender of last resort. Got through it. And I looked at my finance team and I said, you know what? I'm proud of our history, but our history does not give us a future. Right. We need to start looking at acquisitions to get into markets that have a better future than the historic business was making returnable bottle washers for the brewing industry, and people don't buy beer in returnable bottles anymore, and pasteurization. So I realized I had to transform the company, not being an engineer, being a financial guy. The only way I could do that was through acquisitions. The only problem I had is I had no money. I mean, it's like going shopping without a wallet. So I began this journey. There's now over 140 adoptions, I call them, or acquisitions, with no money. And so what do you buy when you have no money? You buy things nobody else wants that they'll virtually give you. So that's how I began. Okay?
Yeah.
And today, this journey has taken us to a $3.6 billion company. Our share price, we have a simulated public share price, has gone up 12% a year for 25 years. And we have a vision to be a $5 billion global company. So again, today we have 12,000 team members, 100 locations all over the world. So what I'm going to talk about is not a U.S. issue. It is a global issue. Okay. Right. So, and our experience from India to China to Serbia to Italy to France is universal true. People simply want to know they matter in every country in the world. And as leaders, we have the opportunity to show people they matter.
And yet, right, I want to move into the next slide because the last time I heard you speak, you used these slides. You gave a speech at my alma mater, Calvin University, I don't know, in the last year at some point. And these statistics are stunning and deeply, deeply disturbing.
The way I like to say, Jerry, is my granddaughter was graduating from Aspen High School, and I went to the ceremony, and everybody cheered as their child, their granddaughter, grandson walked up to get their diploma. And when my granddaughter walked up to get her diploma, I got tears in my eyes because I knew the world we were sending her into. Okay. Again, 88% of all people feel they work for a company that does not care about them. I tell CEOs, you're all worried about the cost of healthcare. You are the problem. 74% of illnesses are chronic. The biggest cause of chronic illness is stress, and the biggest cause of stress is work. Jeffrey Pfeiffer at Stanford wrote a book on this, and he quotes us in his book called Dying for a Paycheck. And Raj Zodia, my co-author, said, we have a 20% increase in heart attacks on Monday mornings when people have to go back to work.
Yeah.
Why would you want your precious child to leave your care and go into a broken world?
Yeah.
And that was a startling revelation to me when I learned these statistics.
It's deeply disturbing, and I just want to define the audience here, Bob, of the people on this webinar and who will be listening. The majority of them are in learning, training, and development or in human resources. And one of the unique things about our industry is that, especially the people in HR and the people in learning and development, L&D, we touch just about everybody through the courses that we make, through the opportunities that we provide, through our hiring, and through the development work. So the people who are on this webinar are not people who are isolated and don't have influence. Sometimes they don't really realize all of the influence that they have, and it's pretty remarkable. There's one other stat that I want to put up here. And I've heard you say this before, that your supervisor is more important to your health than your primary care physician. Yikes.
Startling. Again, I guarantee you, never in my life, never was I told in my education, my experience at Waterhouse, my experience at Barry-Wehmiller, my awareness of the business world, never was I told that the way I would run Barry-Wehmiller would affect the people's lives at home. Yeah. I just thought your home life was your home life. I was focused on business. And so it never occurred to me the way I would treat you at work would impact the way you go home and treat your spouse, treat your kids, affect your health. And so what we say is the way we lead impacts the way those in our care live. Okay. Yeah. The impact, and that change was dramatic for me because when we teach at Barry-Wehmiller University, people to go from management to leadership, from using people to caring about people, 95% of the feedback we get is not how they run a better marketing department or finance department. It's about their marriage and their relationship with their kids, because parenting and leadership, we have found, is identical. Is the stewardship of the lives entrusted to you. And if you see the people in your company, again, the biggest transformation to me, I want your audience to hear, is I saw people as functions for my success. I needed an engineer. I needed a machinist. I needed, an accountant. I needed these people for my success. I was nice with a nice company, but I saw them as functions. The day the world changed for me, the lens was reversed, and I didn't see people as functions. I saw them as somebody's precious child whose life I would profoundly impact by my leadership. And that changed dramatically my sense of responsibility as a leader.
Yeah. And we're going to get into that story because that story is very moving. But before we leave this slide, it's sad. There's something funny about it. 65% of people, if given the choice between getting a raise and getting their boss fired, would choose 65% would choose to get their boss fired rather than take that's astounding. And I think one of the most important things that you point out, and you've pointed it out already, is what you were taught versus what you learned. And so let's go to the next slide, because I think there's some key points on here. Our society is suffering from malpractice. So connect malpractice and the expression poverty of dignity. What do you mean by that?
Well, go back, what is the purpose of education in our country? I went back to Harvard, and they said the purpose of education is to have an informed citizenry so we can have a democracy. But then the Industrial Revolution came along, and the leaders of our Industrial Revolution said, I need engineers, I need accountants, I need scientists, I need these skills to fill my offices, to fill my factories, to meet our demand. And so the Industrial Revolution thought, well, we're going to create better paying jobs with better benefits, better security than working on the farm. And so the Industrial Revolution was thought to be the solution to the society we all wanted to be a part, where wealth is created by the skills you have applied to the company. The one thing they forgot is clear, because here we are, a century later. We have the most prosperous economy in our history, and we have the highest level of depression, anxiety, and suicide we have ever had. Why? Because we forgot one fundamental. As we come together, we have to have the skills of being good stewards of these lives that all of a sudden we will have a dramatic impact on. And so the problem is we don't have leaders. We have managers, bosses, supervisors, principals. We don't have leaders, mentors, and coaches who look at those people as somebody's precious child and treats them with respect and dignity. So as Tom Friedman wrote an article recently in the New York Times, he said, more than a poverty of money, we have a poverty of dignity. When people feel used for an organization's purpose, they feel a sense of humiliation. And when they feel that, you'll see anger and unrest like you've never seen before. So what we, the name of our book is Everybody Matters. Okay. Everybody is somebody's precious child. Treating the people that you have the privilege of leading with respect and dignity, it doesn't give them dignity. It validates the dignity they were born with. And they go home at night, better husbands, better wives, better citizens, and all the anger and unrest we see in this country, despite our economic prosperity. This country is more divided than I've ever seen before because we don't know how to live together and care for each other. We have a very me-centric world.
Yeah. So just a couple of comments in the chat. Jill, good to see you on, by the way, Jill. But Jill says this: you are the person that your team members talk about with their families at the dinner table. And she says managers are shocked when she tells them that people go home and talk about you as the person in leadership. It's some of these things are, when the golden rule becomes the management rule, employees will thaw and they'll respond, and top performance will be the norm. This is from Mildred Ramsey, but hey, Catherine.
One of the things I want to emphasize: we didn't do this to solve a problem. We didn't do this to improve productivity. We didn't do it to improve engagement. We didn't prove it to be more efficient. We did it out of sense of responsibility because we knew the impact we were making on people's lives. Right. And that is why we did it, and we had no idea how it would be a source of healing in the world. Remember, Bill Urey of Harvard came and visited, and he's a world peace negotiator of 30 years. He saw our company, he talked to our people for 2 days, and he said he saw the answer to world peace in our company. I said, Bill, how could you see the answer to world peace?
Right.
He said, I saw a place where people genuinely care for each other.
Yep.
At work, at home, in our communities. The healing power of business could be profound, where we should model caring so people look forward to coming to be with this group of people they enjoy. The number one source of happiness in the world is a good job doing meaningful work with people you enjoy. And that's what we deny to most people in this country.
Yep. So I want to go back just a second. Let's move on to the next slide. But just a little bit of you talked about education. You came out of an accounting degree in Indiana and an MBA in Michigan, and you were taught to manage people. Those are spreadsheet functions, right? And when you do that, you inherently take away human dignity. When you objectify somebody or turn them into a person where their dignity is tied to what they do, or what, more importantly, what they can do for you.
Yeah.
It really mixes up humanity. And then your line here about, success is money, power, and position, right? Those are the things that you were taught. Those are the things that most MBAs do. I've taught in an MBA program for 15 years, taught economics and global business. And that comes across very, very strongly, that money, power, and position. That's often why people do an MBA to begin with, right?
Yeah, Jerry, the best example is that CEO of a major American company who came up to me after I talked at a church in Dallas. and said, I thought my job was to build the market leader in our industry. He said, which I did. But until I heard you speak, it never occurred to me to care for the 100,000 people that work in our organization. Here's a man of deep faith, credible values, but it never occurred to him to care for the people he had the privilege of leading. He said, this is giving me a whole new purpose in life. And I want to add, I was interviewed by Washington University organizational development professors for an hour and a half. At the end of an hour and a half, they said to me, you're the first CEO we've ever talked to that never talked about your product. And I thought, and I said, I've been talking about our product for the last hour and a half. It's our people. I won't go to my grave proud of the machinery we build.
Yeah.
I'll go to my grave proud of the people. It caught him completely off guard. So the greatest act of charity in this world is not the checks we write. It is the way we treat people we have the privilege of leading. We need the charities to heal the brokenness in the world we're created by management, okay? Because the word management means, in my opinion, the word management means the manipulation of others for your success.
Right.
And leadership is the stewardship of the lives you have the privilege of leading.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next slide, because I think you've touched on some of this, the fact that we weren't taught to do this. People in business are not taught to do this. They're not taught to inspire. They're not taught that they should care, or even if they do, how to care. And we're going to get into some to some practical matters here pretty quickly, just what this looks like. But anything you want to say on this slide, go ahead. But I for those who are listening and participating, are you inspiring people? Are you demonstrating that you care for them? And again, in the L&D world and in the HR world, your responsibility is to give those in your span of care. And people in learning and development, people in HR have a very large span of care. Some grounded sense of hope for the future. What do you mean by grounded sense of hope for the future, Bob?
Well, Donna Hicks of Harvard, who wrote a book on dignity, talks about when she interviews people, one of the greatest fears they have is safety. And she doesn't mean for their eyes and their fingers. And I think some of you read major corporations, and I think there was an article in the Wall Street Journal yesterday about Southwest Airlines, known for its culture of care, just announced 15,000 people are going to be let go from Southwest Airlines to appease the shareholders, to improve profitability. So they're going to sacrifice the lives of 15,000 people to improve the financial results. How does that make the people that are still there feel?
Yeah.
Okay. You took a culture that Herb Kelleher built based on people and a unique culture. But why did? Because the share price has not been going up. Okay.
Right.
And so I say to you, how do the people that you invite into your organization go home at night, decide to buy a home, get married, raise children, when they can't count on you to give them a sense of the future so they can make those decisions? And so how did those people who Southwest Airlines sent an email to that they were no longer going to be with the company, how did they feel? Okay. Mm-hmm. How did it impact them to finally join this prestigious company known for its culture? And all of a sudden you're told you're not needed anymore. So again, caring, but remember, I want to tell your listening audience, you can't from this webinar go say we need to care more for our people. Because caring is a skill. You got to teach people how to care. So learning and development, the foundational course at Barry-Wehmiller University, the foundational course is empathetic listening. And we have learned, and Jerry, you took the course, we have learned it is the most powerful human skill anybody could have at home, at work, in your community. And we see it in the political environment, we see it in the right and left argument, is to listen without judgment, to listen to validate, because we are created uniquely differently and we see the world differently based on our personality type. So how to care for the people you lead is a skill we teach at Barry-Wehmiller University, so that you can't ask people to care. You have to teach them how to care.
Yeah.
You can't ask them to speak Chinese. You have to teach them to speak Chinese. You
Right.
can't ask them to care. You have to teach them. And it begins with empathetic listening. And then, of course, recognition and celebration. How do you let people know they matter?
Yeah. I'll tell you, I took that listening course 8 or 10 years ago. And my wife, Mary.
Yep.
I came home from that weekend, and about 3 days after I got back, she looked at me and said, "Okay, what are you doing?" I said, what do you mean? She goes, "What? We've been married 39 years." She's like, "What's happening? What is this new you?" So, yeah, there's some really great.
This should make you feel good. Remember what Mary said to me when I saw her after she took class? She said, "Thank you for giving the husband back to me that I married." That's what Mary told me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not a great statement about me, but it's true. And the importance of learning how to lead. Yeah, there's some great comments in here. Susan Donna Hicks's book, Leading with Dignity, is exceptional. Bob's book is great. Yeah, there's some really good. Yeah. Do you find, Dirk asks an interesting question. How are you an empathetic listener in a hybrid team environment? I think it was different when we sat across from one another and we were in the same places. Are you finding any challenges, Bob, applying these things in situations where people are talking the way you and I are talking today?
No, these remember 80% of communication is nonverbal. So we see because we're doing Zoom.
Yeah.
I would say to you that the skill of listening does not have to be in person. Again, the young lady that worked for Simon Sinek who took the class said, I called my mother every day because I care about her, but I took the class and I realized I never listened to my mother. I talked to my mother. And when I began listening to my mother, she changed for the good dramatically. And these are phone calls. This is even before the video. So the skills of listening are the most profound personal skills and all of you in learning development, it should be the first class we teach. This is a 3-day class we teach. Okay. 3-day class we teach.
Universities don't teach this, right?
I know.
I mean, we don't learn how to, grade schools don't, middle schools don't, high schools don't.
Well, remember, I was invited to a school and they wanted to embrace our leadership, and they took me to a debate class and to listen to these kids. And after listening to these 4 boys practice debate because they're going to go to contests in Chicago, the teacher said to me, "What do you think, Bob?" And I said, "I just saw what's wrong with this world. We teach speech and we teach debate, but we don't teach listening."
Yeah.
And when you see the brokenness we have in families and companies and the world, I remember Bill Urey, who I mentioned earlier, said when he talked to our people, they talked about this listening class, and he now realized, just think of the Ukrainian situation, the Middle East situation. Bill Urey said, "I now realize I've been going to global peace talks for 30 years, and I now realize that's exactly what they are. They're global peace talks." The problem is nobody knows how to listen. Listening is a skill that is teachable, and it makes a profound impact on you and the people that you work with and live with and interact with in life.
Yeah. So there's a moment in your life, a very distinct moment, probably an actual date, where you go from, sorry, any of you with accounting backgrounds, but sort of the people function, human resources, human beings as tools, and you have a life altering event, and all of you can see the screen. It's not the day you got married. That's not a picture from your wedding, Bob. But tell us how does this transition take place?
Well, right before this, I just want to mention that one of my revelations before this revelation was being at church. And I, one day after the sermon, because my mentor was director of our church, I looked up Cynthia, my wife, and I said, "Oh my God, Cynthia, our church only has us for 1 hour a week. We have people in our care for 40 hours a week. We are more powerful than the church to help people live lives of meaning and purpose." And then I was at this wedding with this buildup of revelations, and I was watching a friend walk his daughter down the aisle, and everybody oohed and how precious she looked. And the ceremony continued, and all of a sudden, I saw how everybody saw these two people as precious. You know, the bride, the groom, the family pride, and all of a sudden, because prior to that wedding, I saw people. I had a nice company. We had a typical company, but I saw people as functions. Accountants, engineers, receptionists, and the lens was reversed. And that day, I saw people, I said, oh my God, the 12,000 people in the world who, in my span of care, are not functions. There's somebody's precious child, just like that young man and young lady, who simply want to know they matter. And we have the power, because we have them in our care for 40 hours a week, we have the power to show them they matter, that who they are and what they do matters, and we could heal the brokenness in the world. Business could be the most powerful force for good in the world if we simply knew how to care for the people we had the privilege of leading.
Yeah. And I think that one single, let's go to the next slide, because I think that one experience is encapsulated, and you've said a couple of different versions of this, but it's all perspective. When your perspective changes and you see every single human being that you encounter, everybody you've ever loved, everybody you've ever negotiated with, everybody you've ever argued with or fought with or worked next to, every single person is somebody else's precious child, and therefore is deserving of being heard and is deserving of being treated with dignity. I think if you boil this all down, it's the title of your book, Everybody Matters. If you boil this all down and you don't get that core basic concept, the rest of it is just gimmicks.
Yep.
You
And
know,
again, in leadership and development, to me, how do we help our team in leadership and development, which all of you are involved in? How do we help our team members be better stewards of the lives they have the privilege of leading? How do we make sure when we promote people into leadership positions, they have the skills to be good stewards of the lives, knowing that they're going to affect their health, their family life? And so, again, the way you see people, and again, a really short story, but a McKinsey partner heard me speak in Amsterdam. He had to go get in a cab after a cab driver made some bad decisions. He got stuck in traffic. So he came back to the office, and he walked into the office where we were having a post this presentation discussion. And I said, McKelly, what are you doing here? And he said, I got to tell you something. Got in a cab, young cab driver, made some bad decisions. I was going to miss my flight. Irritated, this cab driver didn't know how to get to the airport right in Amsterdam. I said, just take me back to the office. On the way back to the office, I thought about, which I hope all your listeners thought about, that young man is not a cab driver. He is somebody's son. And I decided to talk to him like I would want my son talked to if he made some mistakes. And it profoundly changed the way I treated this young man who had made some mistakes, taking me to the airport.
Yeah.
The way we see people affects the way we treat people. If you see people as a gasoline station attendant, if you see people as a receptionist, you will treat them accordingly. But if you see them as and treat them like you would want your children treated, with dignity and respect, we could profoundly heal this brokenness we're feeling, because the way we see people affects the way we treat people.
So we're going to get into some practical stuff, but at a very high level, your definition of success, and we need to couch this and balance it, because it has to be balanced with a business that performs, right? You can have great intention and poor performance, and sooner or later your great intentions are going to fail because you haven't business. But talk us through, and I know you guys at Barry-Wehmiller have put a ton of thought into this statement that we measure success by the way we touch the lives of people. Where did this statement come from? And this is not a typical, right? This is not a typical mission statement. Where did this come from?
You know, we were growing, doing well. We had a marketing individual who was developing a video about our growth. And this is like 20 some years ago. And it was about the time of the Enron scandal.
Yeah.
And so we're all impacted by the Enron scandal, the impact of.
And they had a great mission statement, right?
Yeah, on the wall, wall.
Absolutely.
And I was profoundly impacted by that situation and everything around it. And they're doing this video on our growth and, in quotes, traditional success. And they came to me and said, well, Bob, how do you want to kind of define growth and revenue, profitability? I said, the problem is in this world, we measure success all wrong. We are going to measure success by the way we touch the lives of people. We touch our team members. We touch our investors. We touch our customers. We touch our communities. We need to think about our actions and how it impacts people's lives. Okay. Yeah. And that's how it was born. It was born in the Enron era. And again, we're going to measure success because if our share price goes up now, again, our share price has gone up close to 12% compounded annually since over 25 years. So we believe it's around people, purpose, and performance. It starts with our responsibility to people around a purpose that inspires them. And then we have to create value. If we don't create value in alignment with the expectations of our investors, we're going to lose their confidence and hurt people. So it's not one over the other. It is performance and culture in harmony. You can care for people and actually create value. But the foundation of this is the business model. If your business model is flawed, you're going to end up hurting people. Okay. Like Southwest Airlines, ended up, they said their corporate got bloated. That shouldn't have happened. Okay.
Right.
That should not have happened because people got hurt. And so I'd say to you, I want to make sure it's not just about caring. It's a combination of a robust business model. Some people say it's about getting the right people on the bus. I say it's about building a safe bus. Okay, which is your business model. And then you need drivers who are your leaders who know where they're going and how to drive that bus safely. And then anybody that gets on the bus is going to be fine. So the foundation of our caring for people is a business model where people feel safe. Okay, they can decide to raise a family. They can go home not worrying about what's going to happen on Friday. So that is our goal: is a robust business. And again, if Ford builds an F-150, they take it out into the worst terrain and test it to see how it holds up. Well, if you design a business model, just drive it into 08, 09 downturn when General Electric collapsed, a lot of people collapsed, and our share price went up 11%, and we let nobody go, and we got through it together because we were guided by this statement. We're going to measure success by the way we touch the lives of people. And if we let people go in this environment, we're going to hurt people, and we can't do that. So it's kind of a true north in our company.
How did you survive 08 and 09? I know it wasn't easy. And, in your book, you describe some of the things that you did to mitigate that. And those stories are powerful. Are you willing to tell us a little bit about how'd you do that? How'd you pull that off?
Well, it started in 08 in like September. And by January, we had a board meeting in Florida. And this is the most unusual economic environment of our lifetime.
Yeah.
The world seemed to be falling apart. And I walked into our board meeting, and the first thing my board said to me is, don't you need to lay off people? And I said, why do you say that? Well, everybody is. Don't you need to do that, Bob? And I said, no, I think we're going to be okay. And they said, are you sure you're not just being an optimist? And I said, no, I don't think so. So we had our board meeting. About a month later, I'm in Italy, visiting our operations in Italy, and I get an email. One of our largest customers put on hold a major order that was in our backlog. Okay. Now, our orders had slowed down, but we had a good backlog. And so I sat there in my hotel room because of this statement, because I'd been out prophesizing the statement. It was in my heart. And for the first time ever, because I would have done what everybody else did, then we're taught, not personal, but you got to
cut.
You got to cut. It's just what you got to do. It's, it's not fun, but you got to do it. And I sat there in my room and I said, oh my God, it's hit us now. What are we going to do? And I said to myself, what would a caring family do if they had a crisis? They'd all take a little pain so that nobody had a lot of pain, but they'd all pitch in. So I came up with the idea, stimulated by this in my hotel room that night, And I emailed back to the team. And I said, what if everybody took a month off without pay when they wanted it, not when we told them they had to do it, when they wanted it, so they could be with family or friends or do something special. And that would probably save us $10 million and get us through this crisis. By the time I landed back in the United States, they had a program, and you cannot believe the impact it made on people. Unbelievably positive, because everybody's worried it was going to hit us. They knew the orders were soft. And all of a sudden people said, oh my God, my friends are getting laid off and I'm not. So people didn't look at it as we were taking a month's salary from them. They saw the month that they gave up in salary as a contribution to Bill and Mary, who sat next to them, who weren't going to lose their job. Yeah. It was this, it built it. It was an incredible amplifier to our culture, because people felt that they gave up something, but it saved everybody else. And we got through it without letting anybody go. And we came out of it stronger than we went into it, because we validated our culture. We preserved the skill set of our team members, and it enriched our future.
And you did kind of what you mentioned earlier, moving from the me, how does this affect me, to a we, to, what if I take this action, how is it going to benefit everybody? And there's some safety in there. A couple of questions from audience members. Is it possible to transform an organizational culture from middle management up? You've held the position of chair of the board and CEO, which, that gives you an enormous amount of authority. But many of the people listening in are somewhere in the middle, right? How do you begin to spread this, not from the top down, but maybe from the middle out, up, and down?
Well, I get that question frequently. I gave a presentation to a major global firm of their operating executives, and one gentleman said, because this was a $20 billion group of a $60 billion company, and a gentleman asked me kind of the same question. He said, Bob, what do we do if corporate doesn't support this? So he didn't feel he was in a corporate position to be in control of it. I said, what do you need from corporate to care? What do you need? You have everything you need to care. You just need to embrace it. And so I would say to everybody, the simple thing is, obviously I did a TED talk on caring. You could sit down and listen to it. We wrote a book on it. There's a bunch of my talks. You just need to decide to look at the people you have the privilege of leading us. How do I begin this journey? Even this major executive of this, $40 billion company said to me, how do I handle my board? So he wasn't middle executive, but he was chairman of the board and president, still concerned how he would handle his board. And I said, very carefully. So I would say to you, you got to look at your situation, but look at the people in your span of care and say, are you a good steward of those lives? And what can I do to make sure that they have a good future? Okay, what can I do? And model the kind of behavior you hope, and people will be coming to you. So you don't need funding, you don't need capital appropriations. You just need to look at the people you have the privilege of leading through the lens. Am I a good steward of these lives? Can they go home at night knowing that they matter and return each day looking forward to being with this group of people? It begins right there. That's where
it's contagious. It's contagious. The idea isn't that first I need to become CEO, then. The idea is, in the span of care that I have, I can make a difference. Great comment.
Well, I want to add, because you use the word contagious, Jerry. We didn't know this when we started designing our university, that we would create care. We wanted people to go home fulfilled. Yeah. But when we sent them home fulfilled, they felt cared for. And the bad news about COVID, it was highly contagious. The good news about caring is even more contagious than COVID. What we've learned, we didn't know, what we learned is when we treat people with respect and dignity and show that they matter, who they are and what they do matters, and they feel cared for, it releases in them the capacity to care for others at work, at home, in their community. Yeah. That's the feedback we get. We had no idea when we did this that it would impact people in that way. But when we gave people these skills of listening, how to see the goodness in other people, and how to serve others, when we gave them those three, they began to care for each other. As I said, Bill Urey said he saw a place where people genuinely care for each other. It is contagious in a positive way.
Yeah. back to the adoptions and let's just call them acquisitions, so everybody knows what I'm talking about. You've acquired, Barry-Wehmiller's acquired 140 companies. Usually those companies are pretty beat up, I would imagine, by the time you get to them. You aren't going into those companies, and I'm going to use a word you hate, but firing 30% of the people, right, and breaking them up. And how do you take a company that's struggling and change that culture? Because I think there's some really important lessons to be learned in there.
You know what? Probably the most moving experience. We bought a French company, which my board had great reservations on, but we bought a French company. Um, and I flew over to meet with the Workers' Council because we heard, the Workers' Councils are going to challenge you. They're going to be difficult. They're kind of our version of unions. But anyway, the Workers' Council.
Right.
And there was this group of six, I think, 50 to 60-year-old people who had been elected to the Workers' Council. And I flew over, I sat down with them, I shared our vision, I shared, that we wanted to give them a good future. And at the end of it, a gentleman named Felipe said, "Mr. Chapman, can I tell you something?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Mr. Chapman, we've been waiting for you for 32 years." And they began crying because governments can't legislate caring. They can't protect your soul. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what we have found around the world, it's a universal truth that people simply want to know they matter. And when they feel cared for, they feel they matter, and it is contagious. So we know. And so I would say to you, in our bringing, they say, well, isn't it difficult with these companies all over the world, from Serbia to Italy to India? You know what? It's a universal truth from China to India to Serbia to Italy to England to South Carolina that people want to know they matter.
Yeah.
It's a universal human truth.
Yeah.
And our leadership model taps into that because it begins with listening, recognizing the goodness of others, and moving from a me-centric world, it's all about me and my success, to a we-centric world where people genuinely care for each other. One of the things I want to mention, Jerry, I think, because it's relevant, there's a guy named Steve Jones who was a high school football coach in Kimberly, Wisconsin. He read my book. He wanted to visit with me. And so he came up to Green Bay. I met with them, and I said, "Jerry, the one problem I have with sports is we have winners and we have losers. How do you coach, in this case in football, young men about winning and losing?" His answer I will never forget. He said, "We don't. We say, play your position well for your fellow team members." And they won 72 games in a row and 5 out of 6 state championship. I never thought in my role in Barry-Wehmiller, I never thought in my role at Barry-Wehmiller, I always thought about me and my career. I wanted to do well so I could advance, benefit my family, have a successful life. But if we could create environments where your teams come together to play their position well for their fellow team members, we would start dramatically changing the world of business, because it's kind of an individual sport now, but it should be a team sport. So again, that was hugely impactful to me. Let's play your position well to give your fellow team members a future. And that's the foundation, from senior leaders to everybody. Everybody play your position well to give everybody else a good future.
Let's move on to the next slide, because it kind of is a summary of the discussion we've been having so far, right? What you and the leadership at Barry-Wehmiller learned is the span of care, right? We've already talked about, well, maybe I don't have influence over the entire organization, but everybody on this webinar has a span of care. Everybody has people where they have some influence. The need to create economic and human value in harmony. Both of us, and you said Southwest, but there are many other companies that have tried to create human value without economic value. The vast majority create economic value without human value, and keeping those things in balance. And then, leaders giving those in their care a grounded sense of hope for the future. I think those are really profound statements. And let's go on to the next one. Again, the business model and the culture of care. You've mentioned people, purpose, and performance. and then the essential skill, the hardcore skill of listening. One of the things, let's go on to the next slide, Scott. But one of the things, Bob, I'd like you to talk about is, and one of the things that's been impactful in my life is your drive to what you call shine bright lights on good. That to me is powerful. It balances things out. Talk about what you mean when you say that, and some of your recognition programs that you guys run.
Yeah, well, Jerry, you all know, your listeners know, we live in a world where what bleeds reads. The brokenness of the world is what hits the media, and the media has expanded dramatically with social media. So we're seeing every day inundated with somebody killed somebody attacked somebody, the brutality. We're inundated with the brokenness of the world. And when Cynthia and I were raising our 6 kids, one of the things we were taught to be a good parent is you need to recognize the goodness in your kids 5 times more than you suggest things they could do better for them to be healthy and to embrace the things they could do better. We find adults are no different. So one of the things we did, we call it Shine the Light. We have a global recognition program, peer-to-peer recognition of the goodness of people. Shine the light in your organization, look for the goodness and hold it up. I don't give 5-year anniversary awards or 10-year anniversary, 50. I give awards for goodness. How do you create a culture where people are looking for the goodness and holding it up? And people say to me, well, what do you do about the people that don't get it? And I said, we don't focus on the people that don't get it. We focus on the people that get it. And we hold them up because it's the law of early adoption and others will follow. And we have Randall Fleming, who was a tough machinist who wanted nothing to do with this. Today is a professor at our university teaching caring. So I would say to you that what we've learned so much in this journey that we could all, if everybody on this call and the thousands of people that you touch, if we could teach these fundamental human skills, hopefully in the future in education, which we're working on, but also in our businesses, and we can balance that with a business model that is well designed so that, again, people feel safe in our care, that we could dramatically change the brokenness we're all feeling in the world. Because right now, why would you want your precious child to get a job for an organization where there's an 88% chance they're going to not be cared for? It's going to affect their health. So we do a lot to be good stewards of our kids when they're in our care. How do we make sure then when they're out of our care and they go to work for a company that they're not going into a broken world? And that's so. And again, the other thing I mentioned here is one of the keys in my organization, my business model design, is balance. We've tried not to be concentrated in any one market, any one customer. So should something change, we're going to hurt people. So that again, the business model was tested 08, 09, and balance was incredibly important. And all we're saying to your team is be the leader you would want your child to have someday. Be the leader you would want your child. Treat the people you have the privilege of leading as you would want your children treated. Okay? That's a key.
Yeah. Somebody's asking about the slides. The webinar will be shared. So in the next 24 hours, all of you will get a link to this. Bob, let's go to the next slide, Scott. There's kind of a summation here. And honestly, if you're going to print out anything, print this one out, right? And blow it up, make it, the 11 by 17 piece of paper and tack it to a place you look at all the time. Because I think it's a good summation of this perspective. Everyone wants to do better. Is that always true? Well, most of the time.
Well, the answer is the vast majority of the people do.
Absolutely.
Okay. The vast, and trust in the goodness of people. Don't look at people. Well, you can't trust people, and we're going to put up cages around the inventory. We're going to we're going to look at your lunchbox before you leave the work. Trust is the foundation of caring at home, at work, and in our country. And it begins with the 40 hours a week we have people. Do you trust the people? Because leaders are everywhere. Everybody wants to do better. trust them, and engage them in the process of being better. And again, leaders are everywhere in your company.
Yeah.
Leaders are not just in position, leaders are in behavior.
Right. And there's all different kinds of them: positional, authoritative, skill-based, right? Everybody's got some influence somewhere.
Yeah. And so we do a lot of peer-to-peer recognition, which is profoundly meaningful. It's one thing to get an award from your leader for your top sales performance or top performance, but it's another thing for a person you work with to say, you know, Bill or Mary, you've made a profound impact on what we do. And I just want you to know how much I think about you. And it is unbelievably meaningful. So we try to create this culture of caring embodied by catching people doing things right, the goodness of people every day. So people achieve good things, big and small, every day. Celebrate it, just like you would at home.
Yep.
Some people wish things were different. Listen to them, because they have a different lens than you. They have a different experience. And what we have is courageous patience. Not everybody's going to get on the bus when the bus pulls up, but it'll be back. When you're ready, get on the bus. And then everybody matters. How do the people in your span of care know that they matter? Are you sending your people home knowing that who they are and what they do matters? Because you will profoundly affect their health, their family life, and will begin to heal the brokenness we're all feeling in this country.
Bob, one last question. Many of the people in the chat have been asking about if you're trying to do these sorts of things and you're in a bad culture, you're in a bad organization, it drains your energy. It becomes the thing that sucks the life out of you. What's your advice? How do you maintain the positivity? How do you continue to try to do the things that are on the screen right now when you're in a bad culture, or do you just shake the dust off your feet and move on?
Well, my encouragement, I would say to you, just for your audience sake, I'm sure if we did an intelligence test, I would not be on the top end of the curve of this audience. But I am blessed with common sense, creativity, and a positive attitude. If you blend those three together, it's allowed me to build an organization that is very unique, that the world is watching right now from a business model standpoint and a culture. So, and we've had many, because we've adopted over 140 companies around the world, we've walked into some horrible cultures.
Yeah.
Okay. Horrible cultures. And we've turned them around on a dime, because when you show people you care, when you give people a sense of a future, they can change. And we've seen this. And so, I would say to you, to everybody, I interview a lot of on Zoom calls. I think tomorrow I've got like 90 people who are new to our company around the world. And I listen and they talk about the role they came from, the company, the brokenness in the world. And if we wonder why we have anxiety, depression, just listen to the people, what they experienced in the last role that they had, the way they were treated. Okay. Yeah. And so the cure for what's wrong, no governmental position we could elect today can change what the people on this call can change. Do you have a company where people feel safe, that they have a future, and that they matter? That is the question. And if not, how do you bring learning and development to your leaders so that they are good stewards of those people we have the privilege of leading?
Let's just go to the last slide, and there are some QR codes here. Bob's book is Everybody Matters, which was a Wall Street Journal bestseller. I think you sold over 110,000 copies of it globally, and I think there's a 10th anniversary version, an updated version coming out, right?
Yeah, I was actually working today. It's 10 years. We're going to come out with a new edition of Everybody Matters in September, and it's going to have 3 additional, because we've learned a lot in the last 10 years since we wrote the book. Yeah. So Everybody Matters is considered by our publishers a massively successful business. It's in 7 languages around the world. And a good business book sells 5,000 to 15,000 maybe. And we just sold over 150,000 because the world is hungry for mattering.
Yeah. Okay. I think the QR codes here will also take you to more information about Barry-Wehmiller, and then also some of the things that you're doing outside. Bob, in the last minute, can you just, some of the things you're doing outside of Barry-Wehmiller, which I think are the things that you're primarily focused on right now, which is spreading this message. How do you do that?
Well, what we realized is, why are we having to fix adults? Why do we have to train people to listen? Why do we have to train people to care? Because I realized in my own reflection on my education and my journey that education is about skills. It is not about human skills. It's about professional skills, medical skills, accounting skills, legal skills. And so what I realized is, until we change education, we're not curing this problem. Okay, so what we are doing now is we have a program with a prominent private school in Charlotte, North Carolina, and several others coming along too, and several universities, to bring human skills integrated with professional skills. So when people graduate from either high school or college, they're ready to go out and live in the beauty of the diversity of the world, not the brokenness of the world, and to be a positive force in the world. And that we know we can do that, because that is what people tell us happens to them when they take our courses. So we're trying in age appropriate ways to bring back to K through 12, to bring human skills to both the students, the teachers, the families, and the support team. And then we're taking universities and redesigning programs to make them more human-centric, so people have human skills to apply their professional skills, so they can emerge from our universities as tomorrow's leaders who have the skills to care.
Yeah. Well, Bob, we are out of time. We could talk, I think, for a very, and we have talked for a very long period of time in the past about this. Just thank you so much. We have another webinar coming up. If any of you want to sign up, it's on scaling learning across cultures, and so some of the best practices for global learning and how that happens. You can sign up at that QR code, and again, you'll receive a copy of this webinar in the next 24 hours. And to all of you who attended today, your time is a gift. We honor that, and we hope this has been useful to you. And so we wish you an excellent morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you are in the world. And again, thank you for your time. And Bob, really appreciate it.
Well, the world desperately needs us all to come together and learn how to care for others, to heal this poverty of dignity. And I really appreciate, Jerry, the opportunity to share this message, to awaken people to what we can do to make the world a better place for our children, for our friends, and others, to heal this poverty of dignity in the world. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Have a good day.